Good afternoon. We welcome you to the study meeting, the West Valley City Council. This meeting is being held electronically, and so we will utilize the statement for our electronic meeting. Pursuant to Utah Code, West Valley City has determined that this meeting will be held electronically without an anchor location given the ongoing novel coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. West Valley City has determined the pandemic presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at an anchor location. This meeting will be held electronically. Members of the press and public are invited to view this meeting live on YouTube at www.youtube.com/user/WVCTV. Thank you. We note that electronically we have 6 members of the council currently here. Councilman Tom Yoon will be joining us in a bit. With that, roll call, then our minutes of April 6th.
Move for approval of those minutes.
Second.
Before us properly, then without objection, the minutes will be approved. Hearing no objections, that motion passes unanimously. The minutes are approved. Reviewing our agenda for later tonight, the only change was some additional information on elections that I believe each of you received, and those were interesting to review and see exactly what was going on. With that, then, our agenda is set. Any questions or concerns? Hearing none, then we'll go to our, let's see, our first public hearing scheduled for next week. SA-2 2021. This is filed by the city, final plat approval for the Capco 5600 West subdivision at 2530 South Anna Caroline Drive. And Mr. Lehman, it looks like Steve Lehman's with us, joined us electronically to tell us about what is happening there.
Thank you, Mayor. Steve Lehman with the Community Development Department. I'll have Eric will do a little presentation to help understand what's happening here. This application and the next application, the Anna Caroline Drive subdivision, are tied together, and you'll see why in just a moment. But because they are 2 independent plats, we need to review each one and of course make a motion on each one. So just to orient you here, the square box is the little piece of property that we're talking about. To the east of that is the Cabco development. To the south, you have the Ritter Canal and the Winco shopping center. We can go to the next slide. This is just a zoomed in version of the subject property that we're talking about. You'll notice that the Anna Caroline Drive does not extend to the west of the Cabco project. And the reason for that is that there was no access because of the Ritter Canal, on the property to the north at the time was not developed. So the city allowed a delay, if you will, of the installation of Anna Caroline. This was a subdivision that was approved in 2014. If we can go to the next slide. we just took a couple of pictures to show you a little bit about the site that we're talking about. So we're standing on top of the Ritter Canal at this point. So the Ritter Canal was just completed late last year, early this year. The building on the right-hand side of the screen is the Cabco building. The Jersey barriers at the north end here that you see is the extension of Anna Caroline. The next slide is just taken on the west side of the right-of-way here. You'll see the existing sidewalk and the sidewalk that this will connect to. And the next slide is looking to the north. This is a road that the Utah Department of Transportation constructed as part of the Anna Caroline subdivision. The next slide is just looking back to the south where the Cabco property is located. The building off to the left is part of the UDOT complex that was recently constructed. And the next slide gets to the nuts and bolts, if you will, of what we're doing. So the purpose of this application is to, quite frankly, just adjust the alignment of Anna Caroline Drive. After the construction of the Cabco 5600 West buildings, we did a subdivision called Anna Caroline Drive. UDOT built their portion of Anna Caroline Drive. Unfortunately, they built it in the wrong spot. So on the right-hand side of your screen is the property that is the Cabco subdivision. The far right-hand side is the Ritter Canal. So we're kind of looking down on top of this right-of-way. The vertical line that you'll see just to the left of Eric's arrow there is the property line separating, that's correct, the property line separating Cabco and the Utah Department of Transportation property. The colored version of this, the little area that is highlighted in red on the bottom and blue and pink at the top, is where the road was constructed. That little space is 3 feet. So in order for Mr. Firstenow to build his road, we need to adjust the UDOT Department of Transportation property as well as the Cabco piece. It's a little bit complicated, but at the end of the day, it's really, you can kind of see a bow in the road, and we're needing to amend these plats to provide the correct alignment for Anna Caroline Drive. And the bottom picture is of the plat itself, just the street segment that we're amending. And then I think there may be one other illustration. The next one shows essentially what we're doing with the Cabco piece. So once again, on the right side of the screen, you have the Ritter Canal, and you can see the shaded area, which will be the new alignment for Anna Caroline Drive. So the purpose of this application is to simply adjust Lot 2A and a portion of Anna Caroline Drive so that the placement is correct, so that when Mr. Firstenow builds his portion of the road, it will align with the UDOT portion that they constructed. And that is our report.
Council, questions?
Can I ask, so Steve, how many feet is this road to be completed?
So you mean from so the portion that is incorrect is 3 feet. So the road will actually be pushed to the east about 3 feet.
But the length to hook the two roads together?
Oh, boy, that's a good question. I can look up the subdivision plat. I don't have the dimension in front of me.
Well, I'm just looking on Google Earth and it looks like a long space, but you know, things on the iPad look different than in real life. So that's why I was asking if it's only, you know, just that little bit from just south of the canal up to, what's that business in front? Mountain Land. So are those storage units, that rehab center in the front?
Yeah, the section or the illustration that we showed you of the colored version is where the road will be shifted. So it's probably, you know, 700 or 800 feet at least that will be affected.
Okay, so I think I'm misunderstanding then. So he's not building the road itself. They're just realigning where UDOT
Correct.
misput it. They're not
Correct. So,
building 200 feet of road on that delay agreement.
right. So Mr. Firstenow, we delayed his road because it didn't connect to the south because the bridge on the Ritter Canal was not constructed. In 2019, UDOT came in and platted their subdivision. They were first in, they actually built their portion of the road. When Mr. Firstenow was getting ready to construct his portion, our Public Works Department notified him that the UDOT portion of the road was misplaced. So he's having to hold up on building his road until we get this resolved.
Okay. So I guess my question is, how long is his road? How much? And that's just a guess if you don't have it right there.
Yeah, I can look it up really quickly here. It just will be 1 second.
Okay.
So the width of the property that he will actually be building is 343 feet. It starts at 0 at the Ritter Canal and then kind of bows to the east, but it's 343 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Hearing no further comments or questions, then actually we have SA-3-2021 at this same location, same issue. Is there anything different about this one other than different plats or parcels on this?
No, the explanation is the same. UDOT built their portion and that was where the problem initiated. But essentially, because there are two independent subdivision plats, we are needing to amend both. This is the aerial of the UDOT property. And as many of you know, they build a new maintenance facility and storage. Just south of the salvage yards at the top is 2400 South, a brand new street that was constructed. So this is the illustration that is just different from the Cabco. You'll see the Cabco buildings on the bottom. Same slide, so Eric can just zoom through these quickly. The only other thing, just getting back to that one vertical shot will kind of help the councils. Yeah, so the left-hand side of the screen here is 2400 South. So as you see there, it starts at 0, and as it moves towards the Cabco property, it bows the 3 feet as illustrated.
So is it correct that this application number 3 is just to the north of application number 2?
That's correct, Mayor.
Yeah, okay. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
By the way, just I didn't mention on those, but that includes ordinance 21-16 and 21-17 for those 2 items. Next, we have ordinance 21-18. This is to make a change in our city code to establish a street lighting fee. Looks like Mr. Willardson is ready to comment on this and answer any questions that we may have. Although it would work a lot better if he unmuted.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I was just going to quickly review some of the slides we talked about, I believe it was 3 or 4 weeks ago, and then let the council discuss the options from there. So I'll just briefly go through these right now if I can get things to work here. It always works so much better when you're not under pressure. So, but thank you anyway. So we talked about our maintenance backlog and with our street lighting system and the number of lights that are out right now. And we have a large number of underground repairs that are needed with the direct buried wires, and just the maintenance of the fiberglass poles and the ongoing maintenance of the old wooden poles that we still have in place. And we really, the biggest need is we don't have a long-term replacement plan or any real, a large amount of capital money for major replacements or repairs. So let's see, here we go. So what's being proposed in the ordinance is a $3 per month fee for single family residents and an equivalent fee of $3 for every linear feet of street frontage for other businesses and other commercial and industrial and institutional properties. That will raise about $1.3 million a year. 800,000 of that would go towards operations and maintenance, and then we're proposing $500,000 a year annually for major repairs and capital projects. On the operations and maintenance side, that adds 1 new technician for a total of 3 employees. It adds a second bucket truck, replaces an old bucket truck, adds a third bucket truck and replaces an old bucket truck, increases our parts and materials budget, our budget for hiring contractors to do small underground repairs, and then would also enable us to join the Blue Stakes program. The long-term needs are outlined here. I won't go through all of those individually, but I mean, some of these obviously would be, you know, we could not do all of these at one time, but we would have a $500,000 per year budget that we could start going through the list and knocking off some of these bigger projects. And this is a comparison of the utility fees from some of the other cities nearby and other larger cities in the state. So just give that to you for your reference as well. So that's all I was going to discuss. If there's any questions, I'll try to address those.
Council, any questions, comments? There, in the discussion previously, there were a couple of different options of funding it, so. Is that shown anywhere here, Russ?
No, I didn't have that
Okay.
in here. So what we're proposing is the $3 fee, which would provide the funding for, you know, 1.3 million in new revenue to fund the whole street lighting program.
That's what the issue paper says. We had discussed maybe doing $1 a year for 3 years. I think I'm more inclined to just do it once than do it again and again, or.
And I'm fine with that. Although one question remained, was it $291,000 that was currently in the budget?
It was 491 there.
491, that's right. And so there was a question raised whether with this $3 covering that, if that would be diverted to something else such as sidewalks.
Or if this would be additional money to add to the money so that we could do the street lights.
Well, as long as it's clear where that
Right.
491,000 is going. If it needs to remain earmarked for streetlights, I'm okay. But if it's not earmarked for streetlights, I would like to earmark it for sidewalks. Either one's fine with me.
And I agree, Mayor. I think though that if we're just replacing the $491,000 with this fee, we're not really getting ahead. We're just
Now, I thought,
funding from a different source.
yeah, I thought maybe Russ, you can clarify that, but I thought that the 491,000, see, you said the $3 would raise
1.3 million. So that's intended to fund the total street lighting program, which is a significant increase. So it's going from the 491, which is the current budget, up to 1.3 million.
Okay. I think I was confused thinking that the maybe it's about $1 for $500,000, right? No.
No,
Yes. That's true.
So if we were just doing the $1, then we were just replacing the other source of
Yeah.
funding. So yeah, I think we do want to look at moving that money over to a designated budget for sidewalks or whatever other infrastructure needs. But because now we will have the streetlights covered.
Yeah, I'm not sure if if we put 491,000 to sidewalks, curb and gutter, or whichever, that we could accommodate that. That was one of the questions before, when we added a little money to sidewalks, it was, they weren't really prepared to handle that. So I just want to make sure where the money's going and what it's for, and that Public Works can deal with that effectively.
and I think why we were talking other options was if we if we made the fee $2, then that 491 could stay in and still be up to the same as it would if we just charged $3. So I think that's where our discussion is whether we go $2 and leave that almost 500,000 to help supplement, or if we designate where that 491 goes and leave it at $3. Because I think the $3 and leaving that gives them a lot more, gives them almost 1.8 million.
Well, Mr. Willardson, maybe you could clarify for us, if we did reallocate some of those funds towards sidewalks, is that effective? Would that work? Would we be able to actually improve our sidewalks, replacing the broken sidewalks, all that sort of thing? Would that be effective?
Well, certainly, $500,000 does not make much of a dent in adding sidewalks where there are no sidewalks, but it would certainly make a major improvement in our sidewalk repair budget. It would, it'd be a major boon to that budget. And how that money is used, we're just, what we proposed was the $3 fee to cover all of the street lighting costs. Councilwoman Lang is correct. If you chose to leave that money in the street lighting fund, then a $2 fee would be the equivalent amount of money, 1.3 million. But what happens to that 491 is up to the council and as you go through your budget process.
What's the current budget for sidewalks? Isn't it around
125?
one?
So we have a budget of, for materials, but our manpower and equipment is, I don't have that broken out for you. We don't budget it separately for those guys, and we just budget an amount of time that we're going to spend on repairing sidewalks. But if you give me a second, I can pull that up for you.
Well, Councilwoman Lang, as I remember, it was 100,000. We proposed in one of our strategic planning meetings to increase it 25. Then the next year, there was a proposal to increase it. Was it 50,000 or was it up to 200? I can't remember the exact number there. The reason I remember the 25 is I brought that one up. But the next year, there was targets there. And I don't know how that was allocated, Russ, but it was called funds for the sidewalk. So.
But here, Mayor, I think is nobody talking about the speed bumps here in this city is equally what we are talking right now, because the number of streets, and they have done so well with the speed bumps and it's reduced the number of accidents in our city. So a lot of streets here in our city, they using that nice street to race car. And I think that Russ Wilson have done so well with that. You know, like Chesterfield right here, 2320 South, straight from the 7-Eleven from the west side and go to the east side is the park right there. Is they race car, the car accident sometimes, and now we have a speak bump right there. It's a very nice. People really appreciate that. Multiple places, just like in the 3800 South, and Wilson has done that too. So I think it's equally what we said about sidewalk. Sidewalk, actually, we have a budget for that, you know, small or big, you know, but we do that every year. But speak bumps is we don't have that budget for that. Nobody talk about that.
Okay, now this is a new proposal for speed bumps. Of course, depending on how you define racing, I don't know how fast you have to speed before it's racing, but I will tell you that there's not very many streets in our city, if any, where speeding doesn't occur.
You know, the middle of the race car in the west side in our street right there is a long way to 7200. It's close to 7200 West. If we go there, we talk to people there, and they will tell you. It's a long streets, and the kids love to race.
I think that, you know, the proposal before us is to create a utility fee for the street lights. It's proposed at $3. If we do that, we're going to have that money coming in to street lights. I think the real question is, well, we already had some money allocated to that. I think that our discussion is kind of bouncing around what to do with that money. And I think that we would probably, from what I've heard, most agree that that money should be kept in public works for infrastructure. And I would be fine with, you know, we've built some speed bumps without having a speed bump fund or money earmarked for that. We've got some money to sidewalks specifically because we were concerned we weren't putting enough money into that. I would be fine with just leaving that money in public works designated for infrastructure, whatever they can do with the manpower that they have without, you know, whether it's some speed bumps, some sidewalks, some repair, maybe we have some to do new sidewalks somewhere. I think that's really more of an executive management decision. Well, I think that we would want to leave the money.
Maybe what we could do is the following, because we're dealing with the $3 fee, and that's what we're going to vote on next week, either for or against. This proposal says that we're going to add a $3 fee for streetlights. My interpretation of that would be that it's the 491,000 would remain, the $3 would be added to that unless the council takes additional action, because we're adding the $3 fee. So unless the council wants to change that, or we can always discuss it later. Wayne can make proposals later, but for now, that would be the plan, is to add the $3 fee, the additional revenue, to the funding that we have there currently.
Well, I like Steve Biller comments right there. It's a fair shot to give it to the Wilson. He has a leeway to do that. He's gonna do the sidewalk or the speed bumps, or if he feels that need for our city and which area it needs for our city, I think is give it to him and to city manager.
But that's not included in this budget.
No.
Or in this proposal. This proposal is to add a $3 fee. And what's the effective date on that?
It's January, Mayor,
Okay,
January of 2022.
okay.
I think
Now-
I'm more
Oh,
comfortable
go
with,
ahead.
oh, sorry.
Go
That's
ahead.
what Zoom does. You can't tell who's going to talk. So I think I'm more comfortable with just doing a $2 increase and leaving the 491 in the light pole replacement, whatever. And then as we have employees and need for those other things, we can have them added to a budget when they're planned for, instead of saying, here's $500,000, figure out how to use it. I think it's better to have a plan ahead of time. So I would rather just do a $2 increase and leave the 491 in that streetlight budget.
And I would concur that if the 491 is considered to stay there, then we only need the $2 increase.
Yeah.
And remember that the original commitment was that $491,000, which was a property tax increase, was for streetlights.
Yeah.
So it would be holding to that same concept. And that's very appropriate to do because the only thing we'd have to modify on this proposal is instead of $3, it would be $2.
Yes, and then, the Public Works Department can come up with their next budget if they have the personnel and the time to be able to do all these other projects. Then we approve the funding for that instead of not having a plan.
I'm very comfortable with that as well. So,
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
anything else then on this issue? Okay. Thank you. Then we'll go to the next item.
Mayor, can
Oh,
I ask
yes.
them to revise the proposal to only $2, or are we gonna wait and do motions next week and decide at that point as a council which way we want to go?
Because I don't think we need to have them do it because this is a very simple modification. Strike 3, insert 2, if that's what the council wants to do. So I don't see a need for staff to modify that because our motion can easily accommodate that. Now, if we were going to do something else, that's different.
Okay,
Just that. Okay. All right.
Requires us to remember for a whole week what we talked about tonight. But
Well,
we'll
I
have
just-
the minutes to help us.
yeah, I just thought for ease and effective next week, if they just change the paperwork, it would just, because they're gonna have to change it eventually, so.
Yeah. Okay. I don't hear any further comments, so we'll move to the next item.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, Resolution 21-53, authorized purchase of two new ambulances. And there's three things here. And so I'm going to introduce all three and then we'll just go from one to the other because they are interrelated.
Yes, sir.
If that's okay, council. So it's resolution 21-53 for the two ambulances, 21-54 for the three stretchers, and 21-55 for the 3 Ford F-50, 550 trucks, where all of that gets put together in different ways. Okay, but the chief will walk us through that.
I'll try not to confuse you. So the first one that you have here is a purchase from Fraser Ambulances for the purchase of 2 boxes for new ambulances. Right now, we have a really old ambulance. We have a need to replace it. The other ambulance will be a reserve, as it says in here, because what we're getting to is a point, there's been times where if an ambulance is down, we're out in an ambulance. So it'll just be a reserve if something else comes up. So that's this first one.
Chief, when you say box,
Just the box on the back of the ambulance, because the next one.
in other
yeah,
words, the cab chassis tires are trucks. The ambulance part is the box
Is
that
the
goes
box.
on the back of that. truck.
Correct. And now this where it could get a little confusing because I'm gonna have Eric Madsen come up. Because on the next one, you will see where we're gonna buy some chassis in order to put them under those boxes. And I'll let Eric explain the reason we do that.
Okay, thank you. And by the way, I wanted to clarify that just so it was on the record and so the public understands.
Okay, so
Go
we're
ahead.
going to buy 3 F-550s, cab and chassis. So they're the trucks. 2 of them are going to be drop shipped to Fraser Ambulance Company, where they will mount the module or box onto the truck. The third one will be drop shipped to the city shops, and we will be doing a remount, taking it off of the old truck and putting it onto the new cab and chassis. And by doing that, we saved about $8,000 on the trucks and probably $65,000 having the shop switch over the box compared to sending it back to the ambulance company.
And the box that you're moving is not the ambulance that you're going to put in reserve,
No,
just so that's clear. Okay, any questions, council members? Sure.
I have a bunch.
oh, great.
So previously we've done a refurbish or moving the box. This is the same process and it's the same as what we've done before.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then these ambulances, we have a critical care ambulance. Is that different than the other ambulances? And is one of these a critical care ambulance? I guess that's a chief question.
I can answer that. All the ambulances, the basic inside is the same. One of these units will be a critical care ambulance. We'll just put some different equipment that we already have inside of that. So there will be no additional cost for that.
So is our critical care ambulance one that's being replaced? Will we now have 2 critical care?
No, the one that they're in now will just go to one of the other stations. And the reason we do that is that ambulance gets a lot of miles on it. So we try to get the most out of the units that we can and lessen the miles that is driven on them.
Okay, the next is resolution 2154 was the stretchers. We kind of
Correct.
passed over that.
Yeah,
You said that we're gonna, we have equipment, we're moving a box over. Do we have to replace the stretchers?
yes, the stretchers in these new ones will have the load system that we're buying that we talked before. Some of our ambulances have a load system in it. And so these new ambulances that are coming will have a load system with a stretcher.
That the hydraulic lift?
It kind of is. It basically takes, instead of having to lift the stretcher in, it'll load it in for us. So we reduce injuries with backs and stuff.
Easier on our personnel.
Right.
Okay, good. I was hoping that we would have those
Mhm.
as part of this retrofit or a new purchase. Thank you, Chief and Eric.
And that kind of went into the third one. So the third one was just the purchase of the stretchers. And the reason we're doing that, also the reason we're buying them here is it's cheaper for us to buy the stretchers and ship them to the ambulance manufacturer. We save a little money because we can buy them direct and ship them right to there. So we try to save as much money as we can.
Any other questions or comments? All right, Chief, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Resolution 21-56, authorizing the city to execute a right-of-way easement in favor of Rocky Mountain Power. And looks like Mr. John Rock is going to talk to us about this.
Yeah,
Okay.
Hi, Council. This is pretty simple, I guess, resolution right here. Basically, we're just giving Rocky Mountain Power an easement as we need a new transformer put out by the fitness center to accommodate initially 2 electric vehicle stations. This is sized to take up to 8 dual ports, so I guess that would be 16 spots in total. The current transformer that is in the area where we wanted to put the parking spots was over capacity. So we just need to get a new one put in. Rocky Mountain Power gave us an allowance or a credit for it. So this is really just allowing them to get access to maintain it and take readings on it once we get it successfully installed with them.
Okay, council questions? Hearing no further comments, then we'll go down to our communications, to our electric vehicle charging stations. And Mr. Pastorick, you're going to take this for us? Talk
Yes,
about
thank
it?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and good evening, council. I'll share my screen. So I understand that the council has expressed interest, and this occurred at the council's strategic planning retreat, but the council expressed interest in exploring electric vehicle charging stations within residential developments, or more specifically, multifamily residential developments. And so wanted to go through just a few slides here exploring a couple of ways to do that. And before I get into the options, wanted to just look at kind of the status of electric vehicles in terms of numbers, where we are now, but also where the industry's headed. So this first slide shows within Salt Lake County vehicle registrations for last year. And you can see that for standard passenger vehicles and light trucks, that overall electric vehicles or plug-in hybrids, so the two of those combined, are less than 1% of all vehicle registrations. So as of right now, it's a pretty small slice of the pie in terms of vehicles on the road in Salt Lake County. The next slide, however, does show that the future looks to change that. And so just there have been some fairly recent announcements by major car manufacturers like Ford indicating that at least in Europe, they would be all electric by 2030. And then GM indicating that they would be all electric everywhere by 2035. Another interesting point here from the Wall Street Journal was that within 5 years, the cost of electric vehicles are anticipated to be about the same as just gas-powered vehicles. Of course, right now, electric vehicles are more expensive. And you can see there at the bottom, Tesla's annual production numbers. So they just in the last several years, they've seen significant annual increases in the amount of vehicles being produced. So the future for electric vehicles looks pretty different from what it is today. So in considering the types of vehicle charging options that are out there, and I should thank John Rock for helping me collect some of this data, there are essentially three types. So level one is just essentially your standard outlet you have in your home, 120 volts. It, of course, would be the least expensive, but it's the slowest. So you can see there it would charge, it would take, or you would get 3 to 5 miles of a charge in an hour. A level 2 charger, or 240 volts, you actually would need to install an electric vehicle charging station. It is faster than a type 1 in that you're getting 10 to 20 miles per hour in terms of a charging time. And then a level 3 being the fastest and of course the most expensive at 480 volts also requires an actual charging station. And you can see there, you can get a full vehicle charge in 30 to 40 minutes. And the cost of these range quite a bit depending on the options and again, depending on the type. And so a level 2 charger, again, the 240 volts, the equipment ranges, so not the installation, just the equipment ranges anywhere from 600 to 5,000. And the reason for that wide range is that you have lots of different options you can include. So whether it's networked or not networked, or a smart one versus a not smart charger, you can have ones that are single or dual port, meaning you can charge 1 or 2 vehicles in one station, a wall mount or pedestal mount. And then you can see the installation price range, again, pretty wide range. And a lot of that really depends on whether you have power at that voltage close by, or if you have to do trenching, So there's quite a range in installation costs depending on what power options are on the site currently. And of course, level 3 being the most expensive, you can see the cost of the equipment ranging from 20 to 40,000. And again, the installation price range varying greatly too, again, depending on whether or not you have that kind of voltage on the site. And if you, in some cases, may even need a new transformer on a site, depending on what power options are available on a site, and if you have to extend power to the location where you want to have the charging stations. So in terms of options for looking at having electric vehicle charging stations in a residential development, the first option here, which would be the kind of taking a small step in that direction, would be to add a level 2 charging station in the list of optional amenities that a developer could choose. So right now in the code, there's a list of amenities, and so the developer could choose to include these, but it wouldn't be a require, but they would get credit, if you will, for an amenity by choosing that. The second, which would be taking a couple of steps forward, would be to require at least one level 2 charging station for every 20 dwelling units. And then finally, the third option would be, and this would be, of course, the most aggressive, essentially require a level 2 charging station for every dwelling unit in a project. And so those are the three options we are forwarding. Any questions I can answer on this information?
Kind of a middle ground place to potentially land, Steve, is couldn't we require the trenching, the installation of electrical to where a charging station would be without requiring an actual charging station be installed? Because I mean, we may be all electric by 2040 or something, but I hate to see just charging stations that aren't being used by anybody. But on the other hand, to retrofit a subdivision and bring in the lines would be very expensive and hard to require of anybody, and might fall on the city if we're doing that at a later date. So, I mean, I'm thinking I would be more comfortable with having a new residential area built with the capacity or the capability, but not necessarily maybe the full installation.
Certainly that's an option. In fact, I'm actually talking with a developer right now who's considering in a project wiring each garage for a level 2 charger without actually having the charger in the garage. So in other words, they would have the voltage, the 240 volts available in the garage, and then the owner or resident could choose to include the station at a later date. So that way they wouldn't have to rewire, or the garage.
I like that. I like it's kind of like utopia. We're taking the lines out there. We're not charging the residents for that. But if they want to hook up, then they're going to have to put some money into it and actually hook up.
Steve? One of the issues with this, of course, is that if the homes are not going to be currently capable, and they'll be the same homes that are there probably 20 years from now. So somebody somehow is going to have to come up with a way to add charging stations. And so there's a big societal shift that will have to occur. And, and between now and then, there's going to be some changes in technology too.
Right.
So maybe it'll all work out. We don't have to solve the whole problem today.
We'll have flying solar cars. I haven't seen them yet. But if we required in the garage that it be wired so that the owner or the next owner could complete it with the charging station, then I think we've accomplished our goal.
And 240 is not a real expensive thing to put in. I've got 240 at my house because my father-in-law, when he built it, had a welder that used 240 and a dryer that used 240.
Yeah, everybody's got 240 to their house.
Yeah. So it's not that big a thing, but a note that we might talk about, we talked about Ford and GM, but I was watching the Masters over the weekend, and there's one of their chief sponsors was saying they were going to have several of their models all electric by the end of 2022. And granted, they're not a West Valley car. They were talking Mercedes-Benz, but they were going all in. So, you know, it is coming, and it may be coming faster than we think.
I mean, it's not anything to do with this, but the question that comes to my mind with going all electric, you know, right now in my life, a few times I've actually run out of gas. And so I've got out and walked to the station, got a gas can, came back, filled it up and drove away.
Extension cord.
How can I get a can full of electricity to?
You have to fill your pockets with D-cell batteries and come back to your car and try to get it going.
I hope somebody solves that problem in the next decade or so.
Call AAA and they take you to a speed charging station. 15 minutes, you can get enough charge to get home. You can get 40 miles worth.
Just don't do it on your way, on your vacation. So, okay. Yeah. AAA is going to have a lot more business, I think, so.
You
Well,
just have to plan better with an electric car.
now, based upon this, are you wanting feedback on what we put in that station that we're going to have there at the fitness center?
Mm-mm.
What were the three different levels? 1, 2,
So-
and 3?
I think they've
Correct.
already decided, he mentioned double port and everything, so I think they've decided what they're going to put there.
You have decided?
Yeah, Mayor, the specs on the fitness center project are pretty set at this point.
Okay.
We've already spec'd all that.
So we don't have to make any decision
No.
with regards to this. Okay, great. Yeah, then I'm fine.
Yeah, and I think I'm most comfortable with having the 240 to every garage for homes built, multifamily or single, from this point forward, so that as they're needed, the homeowner can install them easily without having a lot of extra cost from running new lines through their house. And if somebody chooses to plug in a welder instead of a Tesla, it is what it is.
Or if they want to put an oven in their garage, I guess that's okay too, so. The 240 will be there.
Pretty soon it'll be a rental unit.
Ooh, maybe I won't vote for 240 in the garage.
Well, I think a delay agreement to come back and put it in a subdivision is too hard to monitor. So I would
Yeah.
rather have something that's either the 20 or the 2 charging stations per 20 units or in the garage. And the likelihood of them parking their car in the garage instead of using it as a storage unit is probably a little higher.
Yeah.
If you have to plug your car in there.
Although I raised this question, technology keeps changing.
Mhm.
So are we going to put in something or require something that a decade from now won't work or not be needed?
I think that's why the wiring being there is more useful than having the actual unit, because it may not match up with your car when you're ready to do it. So the wiring instead of the full unit makes sense. It's more flexible.
And I think the wiring would be more adaptable to future technology. I mean, electricity is electricity. When you get it to it, the future technology may not need the 240, but you've still got the 240 there. You can always step it down. You can step it up if necessary, but to have the basic wiring would be the easiest way.
Okay,
I agree. And as a side note, there are mansions downtown Salt Lake that still have hitching posts and carriage dismounts on the curb in front of their house because that was the technology back then. And it's just a historical part of their house.
Steve, are any other cities adding a requirement like this to new construction?
I've not looked at other or recently looked at other cities, so I'm not sure on the wiring question if that's something that other cities. But I can certainly do some more research into that, see what other if they're expanding into that.
well, this was a communication item, so we can gather certainly more information and maybe see what best practices are occurring in even other areas of the country. If someone's already done this and how well received it was, or if there were any problems encountered with, putting this in as a building requirement. Hearing no further comments, then we'll move forward on our agenda. I believe Mr. Pyle indicated that item 8B, we were not going to discuss tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to add some other pertinent information to the presentation that wasn't ready yet.
Okay. Then we go to our council calendar. There is one item there that we probably ought to discuss. The Chamber West has indicated they're going to hold their annual awards gala on June 15th, which is a Tuesday. And so we traditionally have supported them. And so the question we would have, haven't had a chance to visit with except for just one of you. So what do you think? Should we go ahead and hold council meetings, or should we postpone our work that night and just move it to the next week and go to the gala? Traditionally, many of you have supported the gala.
We have canceled council meetings for less impactful things. Election night isn't really that big a deal anymore with the mail-in voting and everything else, and you don't get any reports back until after council meeting anyway. But we still cancel council meeting for that. I see no reason not to cancel council meeting for the gala.
Guess I won't comment on whether that's less impactful. For
Yeah.
some people, it's personally impactful.
It is personally impactful, but there's nothing we can do about it by canceling the meeting.
I think 2 of us are on the board of directors. 4 of us are on, or 2 more are on the board of governors. I think that we have enough lead time on this to adjust our agenda so that we don't need to have a meeting that night, and we could.
Yeah, and our agendas have not been extremely critical or heavy. And so I think that it won't have a huge impact. Mr. Pyle, any comments? Is there anything there that would cause a problem if we canceled our meetings that night?
No, sir, not from my point of view. I think some good points were just made about the other reasons the council might or might not decide to have a council meeting. I don't see any problem with it. Certainly not from a staffing standpoint. We don't have any particular items or deadlines or anything that has to be done at that time that we couldn't move.
Doesn't impact the budget, I don't believe, so
No.
should be fine. Okay, then without objection, we will modify our calendar. Now, that's not a vote. That's just saying no one has any objection. We don't have
So
to vote
was-
on our calendar.
Was there no other night they could have held this banquet? Or
Mr.
gala?
Pyle has some information on that.
Okay.
Yeah,
thank
I
you.
spoke with Ms. Riddle about that, and she said she did not want to hold it on Tuesday. She didn't do that by accident, but she was not able to get it scheduled for another night. The only other option she had talked about was she said she could have got it scheduled for Monday, but she has a really hard time getting people to attend on Mondays, so she didn't want to do that either.
Okay, anything else on the calendar? Okay, then to our new business, potential future agenda items.
Hey, Mayor, I've got a potential topic for discussion. We had a presentation recently about the Healthy West Valley organization, which is already very well integrated with the city staff and operations. And I'd like to advance that discussion about prospectively making that an official city committee or commission. If anyone else is interested in discussing that, that's one that I would be willing to advance.
Well, you know, what I'm wondering is, in the past, how have things like this been decided? In other words, how does the city, is there any general guidelines before we get to a specific one? What has happened in the past? And are there any specific requirements we've set up because we changed our Arts Council, a few things like that? So there's been some discussion on this. Mr. Pyle, is there, you know, are we ready to have that discussion? Are there any specific guidelines we've set up? I know we've talked about these in the past.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, this is strictly a policy sort of legislative action by the council if you'd like to take it. And by legislative, what I mean is in the past, when we have considered changes to existing bodies, there was an ordinance that was passed that would direct us to create or modify such bodies. So that would be all we needed really, Mayor, is the council having a unified policy position and then saying, okay, staff would like to bring us back an ordinance that would basically structure this. And there are a lot of examples and models, obviously, of how we've done that.
Yeah, I recognize that. What I'm wondering is just a general discussion and also what items the city is already involved with, because I want to see if there is a pattern that we can adopt to say we will consider it if they meet certain requirements. You know, it's, you know, in relationship to the responsibilities of the city, the role the city will play, you know, what influence do they have? Would we want to have that if city, you know, certainly like our peace officer standards board reviews, you know, there are reasons for us to do those. And we say, okay, does this fit? So I just want to make sure that, you know, we're not going out different from what we've done in the past if there's a standard. I know we can do whatever commission we want with 4 votes. It's that simple. But I just wondered if there was some standard or some guideline that we could attach to that. This one seems like a good one, but if we do it for this one, would we do it for others, or why or why not? So.
Right. So the only standard I'm aware of, Mayor, that would apply there, you already spoke to, which would be a wise course, which is, of course, to define in general discussion, what do we want this body to accomplish? But as far as comparing individual bodies, committees, boards to each other, they really don't compare similarly in some sort of pattern other than in how they were created, meaning they all have some size of a board, they all have volunteers that are appointed and then serve for a term. But the one thing that differs for every one of them, just like you mentioned, is, okay, what do we want to actually see accomplished by this entity?
And I think one of the key things, Jake, would be also to identify what control the city would exercise. You know, in some cases, the city has total control. In others, maybe, you know, they give some general guidelines. And so that would need to be clearly defined, I think.
I also think,
Mayor and, oh, sorry, Karen.
no, you're fine. You're probably happy.
Mayor and Wayne, I just wanted to note that we, Councilman Christensen brought this up a couple of weeks ago. And there were at least 4 council members that wanted to have the conversation. So we actually do have the conversation scheduled for May 11th. Just wanted to let you guys know that in case that helps.
Yep, thanks for that reminder, Nicole.
Perfect.
Well, and I think items that would be nice to know before we consider it is, Mr. Pyle usually is the one who appoints the people that are on the committee, and it comes before the council. If there would be a budget item necessary to support this committee, and then what the true mission statement is of the committee, what their goal is and how it will benefit the citizens.
So I certainly would be willing to work with Mr. Fatisimanu and Mr. Christensen, and of course, anybody else who wanted to get involved on that as to their ideas for that, for mission and purpose and all of that. Absolutely.
Now, remember that this will be a communication item. It will not be a resolution or anything or an ordinance. And so it can still be discussed, modified, addition, and we could, maybe we won't be ready when it comes up. Maybe there's some additional information we'll have to have. So that's the process we go through. So anything we put on there, as long as we agree, and that's already agreed to, I was just bringing up some of the other issues, because I want it to be a robust discussion.
That's good. And I completely agree. What Councilwoman Lang and yourself, Mayor, have brought up are completely appropriate and will be good discussion items. Yes.
Okay. Just don't do it on June 15th.
May 11th. So the other item just to think about is the number of committee members, remembering that you have to have a quorum to have votes on anything of substance.
Yeah, and to that point, which is a good one, we have them ranging all the way from 3 to actually structurally unlimited, although we kind of tailor sometimes that to the board's ability to perform their tasks.
Do any boards or commissions have the power? They don't have the power to bind the council in any way. They can make recommendations, but they can't bind them in any way. So even if they take votes, those votes may bind what their group does, but.
Sometimes the groups have some assigned budget, like Councilwoman Lang was alluding to, and so therefore they might have authority to create a project, but that would be by predetermined budgetary authority by the council as well. In other cases, like the Planning Commission, then right, yeah, they're not deciding anything that doesn't come before the council. So whether it's before or whether it's after, yes, Mayor, that's correct. The council's making the policy decisions on where these entities go.
Okay, very good. Anything else? Any other issues to add to that? Okay. Any other potential future agenda items? Hearing none, we'll go to council reports. Any council reports? Councilman Christensen.
Just a quick report, Mayor. I attended down at the Maverick Center, the Rain concert on Friday night. It was well done. I had a couple of music educators there with me who appreciated it. And it was, the ground floor was set up with social distancing, and it was full. the grandstand area was not filled, but I'm sure it was as full as it could be with the social distancing effect. And so it was a well-done concert and it looked like well-attended. And I don't know how the other two were on Saturday, but if they were anything like the one on Friday night, it was well attended. And yesterday morning, I accepted Senator Maine's invitation to tour the new airport terminal. And we got stuck in TSA just like normal. One of their scanners went down. It happened to be the one the group was going through. And so we got to spend all that time in line just like anybody else. But it was a great insight into what is going on there at the airport and how it's being developed for the future. But well done. And she invited council members from Taylorsville, West Valley, and Kearns. And then today I did attend the Association of Municipal Councils meeting. They're doing a hybrid meeting now where we had 6 of us meeting together in a large room at the Draper City Hall, socially distanced, and everybody else on Zoom, much like we do here. And we found we were discussing things amongst the 6 of us and forgetting to hit the unmute button. So we're going to have to work on that for the next time. But they were basically talking about the American Recovery Act and the money coming in and that. The county expects guidelines and that probably mid-May. So just to bring you up to date on that. They know nothing more than we know at this point, other than some estimates. And I'm sure they've shared those estimates with our financial department. So that's my report.
Councilman Guler.
To piggyback on Don's report, Saturday night at the Rain concert, Kevin Bruder sought me out. He brought to me the producer of the event because that producer wanted to express to the city what a great facility we have and his thankfulness for the city having such a facility and supporting community events. So I thought I better pass that on since I was reminded of it.
Very good. Thank you.
And then I just have, I went to the opening of the new 7-Eleven on 3500 South at approximately 5700 West, right there by Mountain View. And it's open for business, really nice facility, and I think a big enough parking lot and gas station to handle that part of the city.
Very good. Thank you. Let's see. There was one other item. It's not a report, but I just remembered a calendar item. There's a ribbon cutting. And it's, Wayne, we talked about that, the one at 4 o'clock on it.
Yes.
And I thought we were going to bring, am I correct? We were going to bring it up here, or are you just going to
It's a
contact
park
everyone?
ribbon cutting, isn't it?
Huh?
No, I'm glad you remembered, Mayor, because I had forgotten. So
Yeah, there's a ribbon cutting. It's, boy, who was it for?
There was one at Parkway Park.
right,
Parkway
yes.
Park. Okay. So the question was, they are doing it at 4, but you can attend virtually or in person. And
May 25th.
May 25th, that's right. And the question is that because it could potentially impact our timing on our council meetings, we should be okay. But are there any concerns there if that were to go forward at 4 o'clock? should there be a change made? Do more of you want to attend in person? Should we see about doing that earlier or what?
Yeah, it's not on our calendar, on our memo today, but I think we got an email about it over this week.
It came out this week,
Yeah.
our memos.
So we're easy to adjust it either way. We could push it back to 3:30 if the council would like more time and more people wanted to attend in person, or if 4 o'clock you think works and gives enough time, that's good as well. Whatever the preference would be.
I think 3:30 would just make it easier for us if we were planned on
Yeah.
attending that. It's not too far away, but be nice to be there if we can.
Okay, Wayne, I saw enough heads nodding yes. To
Okay.
3:30.
All right, we'll move it to 3:30, and I see that Nancy was listening, so Nicole will schedule it for that, and Nancy has some promotional materials she'll put out announcements wise, and we'll put it for 3:30.
Very good. Any other reports? Sorry to interrupt with that one, but if I don't do that, I won't remember to do it. There's no need for a closed session then, so it appears we may be done.
Motion to adjourn?
Without objection, then, we will stand adjourned. Hearing no objection, we are adjourned unanimously. Thank you all, and we'll see you at our regular meeting in a little bit.